Good evening, Note fans. I hope you all are doing great on this fine Sunday. Bill Griesmer here from Stonegate Capital. Just wanted to go over some nuggets of wisdom. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to spend time in a class with Bill Cook. Bill is from Northern Georgia with a little bit of a different take on both real estate investing. And then also he tied a lot into creative deal structure, and that's how this tied a lot into note investing. So some of the quotes from yesterday, I thought it was overall a really great class. I really got a lot out of it. I like what Vina Jones-Cox called Bill. She called Bill a do-ru, a D-O-R-U instead of a guru. I thought that was really neat. He came across as very energetic, very hardworking. He really gave the audience quite a bit of things to think about. A couple of the quotes, a couple of the gems that I remembered. I posted this one on Facebook a week or two ago. He said, "It's okay to pull someone out of quicksand. It's not okay to take their place." And that's something we as note investors, I think in particular, need to remember. It's easy for us to come into a situation where we buy a note and a borrower might be having problems. And yes, we will do everything, most of us, I should say, we will do everything we can to help them resolve their problems and try to help them stay in their home if that's what they want to do. There's some things we can do, but it's worth remembering that we cannot do everything. That means it's not in your best interest, and possibly not even in the borrower's best interest, to just give them the house. So that would kind of be the equivalent of taking their place. Another thing he said that really stuck with me, you can't calculate lifestyle. Bill worked really hard for a number of years, and now he's to a point where he was able to sell his house, and he and his wife Kim, they can pretty much drive across the country in a RV camper and kind of set their own life however they like. And you just can't calculate that lifestyle. He also talked about in the past where he had a house and he was thinking he would just live there for a couple of years. But that really turned into their dream house with horses and everything. And again, just what he said, I like the way he put it. You can't calculate lifestyle. The other one here, I put this up on my board here. Financial freedom is achieved when your capital is working for you instead of you working for your money. And this is exactly, it's just really struck home to me. This is what I think all of us are working for, at least in some way or another. Everyone wants to get to the point where they can live their life, where they can do what they want, when they want to do it, wherever they want to do it, and with whom they want to do it. That's another thing he talked about. The biggest thing I got was the mindset of what it takes to succeed. And it really reminded me of some other real estate mentors of mine, or people that I have met that I've really come to look up to and have a lot of respect for. One of Bill's success keys was make lots of written offers. Basically, he's saying you got to get out and you got to do the work. This reminded me a lot of Scott Carson. When I talked with Scott just a couple of weeks ago, one of his first questions was, how many offers have you made over the last month? Bill Cook, for many years, his goal every week, each and every week, was to get out, and he actually knocks on doors. And his goal and his requirement really for himself was to make at least 25 written offers each and every week. He really emphasized face-to-face contact with sellers, actually. This also reminded me of Donna Bauer. Donna Bauer spoke here in Columbus for us just a couple nights ago. That was another thing she pounded home, is the need to make many offers. And then my friend Garrison Gilbert, another very successful real estate investor. Just his whole demeanor really reminded me a lot of Garrison, just making sure you do the work. Another thing that he talked about I've got a lot out of was your need to treat your investors right. Bill worked on solving problems. That was something he really emphasized several times yesterday. The need to solve problems for, either your investor or whoever it is you're buying a house from. He even talked about one deal where he had it all worked out and he was making a little bit of money on it, but he eventually canceled the deal because he didn't think the homeowner needed him anymore. I thought that was very respectful, very professional, actually. This reminded me of some other people. Steve Lloyd, when I heard him speak earlier this year, he had similar themes when he was speaking. Dan Zitofsky, same thing. He seems to really look out for his investors and want the best for them. Wayne Snell has talked about a deal that he had that had all kinds of problems, and he was still trying very hard to make sure that his investors were at the very least whole. And then Vina Jones-Cox, I know she has talked about that also. And then also in his paperwork, he included a vision statement, kind of basically who he is, what he's all about. And he talked about that there was one person in the class that he took out door knocking. And that gentleman had knocked on some doors this week. And he said, you know, that made it all worthwhile. So having the vision statement reminded me, of course, of Life and Air and Steve Cook and Sean McCloskey. So I think it's important to say Bill Cook, I don't think he was copying all these people, but it's worth noting this is how successful people think. This is what successful people do. If you want to be successful, you can always try to carve your own way. Of course, there's that, but it's not a bad idea to try not to reinvent the wheel either. So, and for note investors in particular, here's a nugget that I really picked up and I'd have to learn more about myself, was he talked a lot about creative deal making. And one of the ways he did that was through the use of options. So Bill was selling his own private house that he stayed in for some time. When he was trying to sell it, he offered people several different ways to buy it, or several different deal structures. Number one would just be $497,000 in cash. You can get a mortgage, you can do whatever you want to do, or you can pay a little bit more, $575,000, but then buy it on terms. And that's something, you know, it's just another way to look at it. Then if you needed a mortgage, you might not have to go out and get one, but you might pay a little bit more for it in the long term. The third one that was really interesting to me was the buyer would only have to pay $350,000, but there is a catch, one little condition. Bill included this where that Bill himself, Bill Cook, would have the right to go back and buy that house back for any time in the next 20 years for the same $350,000. In the long term, that could end up to be the most profitable strategy for him. He didn't end up actually doing that, at least on this particular deal, but I thought that was really intriguing. And of course, he then has the option, like quite literally, to decide what to do with it himself. He could sell it back to the homeowner at some point in the future. He could just exercise it and buy the house back, and maybe it will have appreciated by then so that he can make even more on it. Or he could even sell it to someone else if he so chose. So I thought that was pretty creative in terms of deal making. He also talked about another example where he sold a house like that. He could have sold a house for $260,000, and instead he sold it for only $170,000. But again, with that option included, where he could buy it back anytime. I don't remember. I think it was 7 years or 10 years. The time frame's not totally important, but he included that in the deal. So I thought that was pretty interesting in terms of, you know, making his own note and providing seller financing, and then kind of looking at it in the long term. So that was everything that I learned yesterday. Hopefully you guys got something from that. Thank you everybody for logging on here. Micah, I see you're on here. John, Gerald, Clifton, Tim, Jay, thank you so much everyone for joining. Does anyone have any questions? Doesn't look like it. Okay, well, this was meant to be just a short video to give you some tidbits about the type of stuff that we learn in class. Again, it was a great class. I highly, highly recommend Bill Cook. He provided a lot of energy. Seems like a very ethical guy. Had the chance to spend a little time with him after he spoke yesterday. just a really good use of time. You'll learn a lot and you'll get a lot out of it. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me this evening, and have a great night. That is how you climb the hill, my friends. All right. Thank you again. Good night.
Good job.